Hello and welcome to this Playable concept tutorial. I'm using QuickTools, Blender, and Unreal Engine to create the series of paintings painted in Photoshop. But the main point of this video will be to take QuickTools assets, build them out in Blender, and then get them into Unreal so you have this kind of scene as you see here. So this is something that you're going to be able to fly around, you're going to be able to position your cameras in, and you're also going to show, I'm going to show you how to take your character that you made in Blender and bring it into Unreal, copy the animations over from the default Unreal mannequin, and just kind of the simplest way possible to get everything up and running in Unreal to where you're doing this like it's not a game, but yet it's kind of playable. You can walk around, you can jump, there's collisions, but then it's also like a movie set. You're designing the lighting and everything, the fog. So we also want to be able to get some cameras in and then paint on top of the render. That's the whole point of it. Get a nice looking render. It looks better than Eevee, much better than Eevee. It really looks better than V-Ray, and I mean Unreal Engine is amazing. But it's obviously such a complicated program. So the whole point of this is to make it really simple, make it easy, and let's get started. So I'm in QuickTools here, using QuickCurve, just making a little UFO. Just the revolve feature. And at any time, if you guys are new, you don't have QuickTools experience on my channel, there's a ton of videos already covering everything. This is more of like an overview of the process more than a tutorial. Making just a simple flying saucer here. The revolve tool with QuickCurve is really powerful. Jama came up with it, and I was able to automate it, and we worked on it and streamlined it, and I think that we just have a really, really cool feature here with revolve in QuickCurve. And then switching to QuickShape when I need to. This is all sped up 3x. Here I tried a different one. I was thinking like that. There's like that story about a Tic Tac UFO. So I was thinking it looks kind of like a drone, like a Tic Tac. So I'm using the voxel modeling workflow in QuickShape here, which just gives you the nice smooth connections. Although I kept it very, very simple. These ships are like the equivalent of a 5-minute thumbnail sketch, but that was enough for what I needed. So here's the preview of the 3 little sketches. I did a solar sail one, which I thought could have been cool. I was thinking like some crop circle type of engravement on the sail part. But I think for this shot, it really, since it's like a farmhouse, farmland, it really just needs the classic UFO. Here I'm doing a photo modeling of a cow. So I'm just bringing it in with QuickTexture, cutting it out. And then I just split it off into some type of logical shape. So at this point I just extrude it, and thanks to QuickTexture it keeps the texture and everything. So I'm able to just keep going here, try to turn it into a 3D cow. Now one of the cool things is you can remesh it, and it'll still keep the texture because of how it's set up when this remesh is done with QuickDeform. And so you get a little bit of that smoothness. Just duplicating the legs over, and then I can change the pose a little bit. Lots of cool stuff with this workflow. So there I applied the geometry to convert to lock the textures in place. a second cow here in a bit. I just did some polygonal editing here. Yeah, so the cool thing about having it separate, but with the textures on, is you can easily manipulate it and get a new pose, which obviously doesn't look hyper-real, but again, we're going to paint over it. And it is pretty cool. Just again, adding some variety to the legs. And there are the final photo modeled cows. Really fun little thing. Here I'm doing a little bit of a hut. So started with QuickShape to block it out, using QuickCurve to do the wooden beams. A little on surface draw so that I can get some of the detail on the roof. And these are the little village pieces that I ended up with after texturing them in QuickTexture. So as you guys know, if you have experience with QuickTexture, there's two ways to texture. You can use the UVs, or you can do the procedural UV system that we have here. If you have force procedural UVs checked and boxed, it will just kind of let you do this thing really quickly, and it creates its own special little UV setup. Now, to get that stuff into Unreal, what I did was apply all of them. So apply the modifier, and that locks the UVs in place instead of continuing to generate them, and join everything together. So here I have one object, even though there's 4 different materials on them. And now I bake them. So you guys know from the QuickTexture tutorial. If you don't, check that one out on my channel. Go over here, just set up the settings, and you can bake the whole thing at once. And you're gonna get a smart UV setup, which is basically when you go into edit mode and you press U and you do the smart UV thing, but it projects, or it bakes all of the procedural textures onto that UV map. So now you have your textures, you have one object, you have one UV set, and one material. And that is what I go into. I do an export, FBX, default settings, and I get that into Unreal. Now I'm going to show you a different way where if you didn't use the force procedural, or you have, say, in the next example, I have clothes that I did texture with QuickTexture, but then I have a human 3D scan that has its own UVs. And so that needs a little bit of a different approach. So now I am texturing the clothes. So just really simple QuickTexture, bring in a few maps, tweak the settings, and the human model is just a 3D scan. Tweak the roughness, the bump. So now I have the rig, and the rig is the one that I included, but you can make your own. There's just be mindful of the naming, because later on in the process with Unreal, it helps to have the naming that the rig has that I included. But anyways, you get it in, you can just position it to fit your model. So that's all I'm doing here, just lining it up. So this rig will be in the description. So now we have the clothes. I joined all of them together, and there's, as you can see, multiple materials on them. But like I was mentioning with the hut, it doesn't matter. You bake everything out once it's joined together, but not the human. So just the clothes here are in one mesh because they're QuickTexture materials. So I'm baking it out. And now I have 3 separate objects. I have my clothes that are baked, I have my human model, and I have my rig. So I'm rigging with just Alt-P, automatic weights, and then just doing a few checks, making sure everything's working. So now you need to get the weights onto the clothes. So you do that by again, you attach the rig, the armature to the clothes, and then you go and create a data transfer modifier. So I recommend just pausing that or slowing that down. Just copy the settings over, and this is what you'll get. Just doing a lot of checking to make sure all looks good. It's good enough. Now I like to, you want to have everything in the origin when you before you export to Unreal. Then you just select everything. That includes the skeleton. So you select armature and all of your meshes. You just export as the default FBX settings, and it'll bring everything perfectly into Unreal. And there you have it. Those are just the characters, and then that's the hero guy, the hero character on the left. And this is the rig that I was talking about that's included. Just has everything named, just built in the right way. So now I've turned off the time lapse and I've launched Unreal 5. We're going to go into the game section here, and you can choose first person or third person. It should be the exact same setup with everything that I'm going to show. But for this case, I'm going to use third person, and I've already made this project here with Create. It's right here. I'm going to launch it. And while it loads, I'm just going to take a second to basically explain that this tutorial isn't really like about learning Unreal and like all of the things that it can do. It's such an advanced program. There's so many like long 5-hour tutorials on how to navigate, what is a blueprint, and all that kind of stuff. I actually don't want to really teach you Unreal. I'm still learning Unreal, so I'm not even in a place to do that. But here, as we see, this is the default scene that you're going to see. But the point of this video is to make it so that just a regular concept artist who uses hopefully Blender and QuickTools or whatever the case may be wants to get all of their objects they export with FBX, they want to get into Unreal and just following these basic steps to have something that you can click this green play button and play around in your concept instead of this default scene with your own custom character. And that's it. We're going to keep it really simple. But obviously I will be mentioning some basic Unreal things as we go. Alright guys, so we are gonna delete all of this unnecessary stuff, just shift clicking. I'm gonna leave the ground, and I'm gonna leave one cube because that's gonna be a good marker for us for scale. The cube is a little bit smaller than a human. Just grab all this. Alright, I'll just leave the cube there and remove this text. Save it. Okay. Alright, so now for the landscape, we are going to keep things as simple as possible. We're just going to use megascans. And we're not going to use any landscape sculpting or anything like that. If you wanted to, you could obviously go into Blender and import from there, or use one of those terrain softwares like Gaia or World Machine, World Creator. Those are all great. You could obviously go and learn Unreal and do the landscape sculpting thing. But just to keep this really easy, so far what I've been doing is I will just go into this button right here, and I will click Quixel Bridge. And that brings out this integrated Megascans library. You can log in here. And what I like to do is put it in here. So now we've got easy access. And we're gonna just search for stuff. Let's just see something that I've already downloaded. Actually, let's go to assets, just an example. Let's do grass, sure. 3D assets. well, I've already downloaded this one, but for example, it's just a large asset. You go into Nanite here. So you don't have to. If you wanted to view this in VR, you wouldn't be able to use Nanite. But since this is just going to be a PC only demo, I'm using Nanite. I click the download button, wait for that to go in, and then you press add. And that's just going to add it to your project. Takes a second here. The loading thing is off of the recording area, so just wait. It's actually right here as well. And we're gonna see it in the content browser down here. So we've got all of our folders here. So Megascans, Gigantic Tundra, there it is. We just have to wait for it to load. There's definitely a lot of waiting for Unreal in this workflow, but it's worth it. So now we load up content drawer, drag out our object. It's huge. Let's lower it. So one thing that I've been doing here is you want to change these. I don't really like snapping or anything like that. I just want to change it myself to like random values. You press F and it will focus on it. So let's just scale it up here. You do a WER for all of your usual transform, scale, rotate. So I just want to see like what kind of scale am I looking for. So this is like smaller than a human, so this needs to be way bigger probably. Let's just move it down. And I will actually delete this and just keep this as my ground. And then I'm just going to go to the next one and just keep dragging stuff out. Alt and click the arrow to duplicate it. As I said, the WER for rotate scale. And we're going to block out the whole landscape using the pre-made Megascans assets. Okay, so this is what I ended up with, just getting a few assets from Megascans. And obviously in this case, my scene fits perfectly with the Megascans look. I can easily grab all the little grassy areas. If you have something that you can't get from Megascans, then hopefully you just made it in the first part of this tutorial in your software of choice. So we can just import it from there. That's going to be the next step of this process. But Megascans is integrated so well with Unreal, it really is nice to combine it. And then you get this kind of cool look where some parts of the environment are super photoreal, photoscanned, and then you have the sketchy QuickTools geometry, which I like. So we have that. I'm going to close this. I also want to say for navigation, if you hold the right mouse button and then you press the WASD keys, you can just fly around, which I think is a really cool way to navigate. And the only thing that you should keep in mind there is the camera speed setting. Maybe raise it a little bit. So now let's go to the import process. So let's go to content, add a folder. Let's just call that meshes. And everything that we import is going to be in here. So now for importing, let's go into content drawer, meshes, right click, click import. And then we're going to navigate to our folder. I think it's here. Okay. Export. So we're going to select the FBX. I'm just going to choose this one, which is one of the huts that we designed. So you want to make sure that search location is on normal, material import, create new materials. You can choose to build Nanite, which I will do. And then we're going to import all. Now while we're just going to wait for this to load. So this should come in kind of ready to go, everything perfect from QuickTexture's baking. There's one scenario where it doesn't. When you have two different UV maps, Unreal has trouble with that. It doesn't automatically know which material. Like if you have two materials, two UV maps, it doesn't know which UV map goes to which material. So I'm going to show you guys in the node editor how to set that up. But for an object like this one, we just used QuickTexture procedural UVs, so it just had one thing. So it should be completely painless. Okay, any errors, you ignore them. Content drawer, let's take a look. Just click the mesh, and now we have our mesh, looks good. Let's go check out the material. So it set up the base color, it set up the metallic, was placed into the roughness map was placed into metallic. So that is an Unreal issue, not a big deal. We will just, so this is an error that I guess it's just on the Unreal side, but all you have to do is just right click, hold Alt, and then left click on the pin that you want to disconnect, and that'll be disconnected. Connect it back up to roughness, and now we're good. So that's the material that I had. To close that, you want to save it. So let's actually go in here, save. So with Unreal, there's just millions of windows. You have to save things in their own windows and manage all that. It just takes some time to get used to it. I'm still not used to it, but it's all you need. We've got our mesh. Now let's close this window. Now we're back here, content drawer. We can drag this out. Just place it right here. Press F to zoom in on it. See how the scale is compared to our little cube. So human is like here, so let's scale this down a bit. There you go. So now you can populate the scene with all of your assets like that. Alright, so I've got a few of the village assets that I made in QuickTools in Unreal now. Placed a few things, got the UFO in, which looks really bad from the top, but the whole idea was that we're going to be looking up at it, so it should be fine with some fog. So there's a couple of things. Let me zoom back out here. Okay, so you might run into, if you have a very, very large scene like I have ended up with here, the shadows are disappearing. So just go into directional light, search for shadow, and then go down here to dynamic shadow distance. Let's bump that up, and that's good enough. Let's actually do more. Okay. So that's something to watch out for. Now, so the meshes that we've imported here have either been megascans or straight out of QuickTexture, where you put procedural UVs, baked everything with QuickTexture, and it all kind of works that way, and it gets imported and everything's fine. You know, you just might have to do the metallic and roughness switch, which is just on the Unreal side, I believe. So the other case is, let's say you have a character. So let's go ahead and import. So the character that we made, even though I made the clothes in QuickShape, QuickTools, and just regular Blender sculpting and stuff, I had a 3D scan for the actual human body. So there's basically two meshes, two UV maps, even though I joined them together. And something that you can do is bring them in separately. So you import the human body and you import the clothes. However, I find that's annoying because now you have to move two things together. I don't really know how to like group stuff and don't bother with that in Unreal at this point, at this moment. So I joined everything together, which means I end up with two separate UV maps. And the way to fix that is we're going to come in here, So basically what happened is it just doesn't know which UV map to apply this into. It's actually, let's isolate. So we can see we're just going to work on the close here. We're going to go here, and we've got everything loaded up except this metallic issue, which wasn't. I think I updated Unreal and now this is happening. But anyways, all you have to do is there's a UV. What is it called? Texture coordinate. That's what it is. It's the texture coordinate. You plug it into the UVs, and then you go here to the coordinate index and you change that. So now it's going to use the second. So it starts at 0. So 1 is going to be the second UV map that you have. Save that. And now we've got our close. So we're going to do the same thing for the actual human body. So I have isolated the human mesh, and I didn't bake this in QuickTexture because it's just one map. So I'm going to load up a texture image. Let's go into content drawer. So many ways to do this. So we're gonna import instead of meshes, let's go into content, and we will just create a new folder here. Textures. We are going to import, and this is the texture that I used. And then you can just drag it in, connect it, and then you want to again use the texture coordinate. And I believe in Blender the human one was the first index, so let's try that out. So I guess you didn't have to put this in if it was in fact the first. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Save it. So now we've got character imported from Blender QuickTexture. The clothes were baked with QuickTexture. The human body was not, but it's all brought in as one mesh and working. So now we're in the meshes folder. We've got our character. Go back. Got our character. One thing that's nice here is these filters. Make sure to use these. You can change it to static mesh, and then you'll just have the meshes. Drag it out. F to zoom in on him. Let's move him over here. And now we've got our character brought in. So there's these two kind of different ways to bring in static geometry, depending on how many UV maps you have, and that's what you need to do to get it working. So as I'm loading in these characters and fixing all the materials and everything, I wanted to also point out a few Unreal tips. Instead of looking through the content drawer all the time, which can get very packed if you don't organize it, which I don't, you can select an object, right click, and do edit, and it'll just have the name of the specific asset, and it'll just pop it in, so you can do all of your material editing and everything you need. I need to switch this alt left mouse button on metallic to disconnect it, connect it to roughness. Save that. Fix that, and then with this scene, this light makes it so difficult to see. We're gonna go more in depth into the lighting in a bit, but just for now, I'm gonna. And because in this particular scene, it's so annoying to have this giant circular shadow here from this UFO, even though we're gonna go into the lighting later. For now, I just wanna press Ctrl L and hold it down, and then as you move the mouse, it's gonna change the lighting. So I just wanna get it out of the way, and then we'll jump deeper into the settings and the look a little bit later. Right now I'm gonna just place my characters, try to block out the scene a little more, and one very important thing that we have to do is collisions, because if you try and just press this green button and play, you're just going to fly through the map because you don't have any collisions on the Megascans geometry right away, nor do you have them on the imported meshes. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. It is unfortunately something like manual, you have to do it for every single object, but it doesn't take too long. So it's useful to do the static mesh filter here so that we can just go over here and let's start with Megascans. So here's how we do it. So you are gonna double click on the mesh, open it up. Just press F to see the whole thing, although that's not very important. We're gonna go down here to the collision and we're gonna do auto convex collision. And down here you see this convex decomposition setting. So you can change this. Basically, the higher this number is, the more accurate it is. So if you have a lot of hills and valleys, you might want a little more. Let's just do 12, hit apply, wait a bit, and now that is the collisions. So I have to change this camera speed a little more. Okay. So you can see it's not going to be great, but considering this is just the ground and we're going to have grass on top of it, this is fine. So then that's it, you save. I'm going to repeat the process for a few more meshes. Okay, so that's the Megascans. Let me just show you one of these. Let's do the cow. This cow came right in from QuickTexture very nicely. Okay, so collision, and you actually have it here already, so you can just, let's do 4 because you're not going to walk on the cow, it's just going to be, just bump into it, and you're done. Let's go back, do the other cow. 4, apply, wait for the green to appear, middle click, make sure you save actually. So you apply, and then you save, and then you close it. Let's do a village hut. Let's try 8. See how this goes. Yeah, it's pretty great. Save. So just repeat that process for every mesh that you have. If something's taken a long time, you can potentially use the box collision, but I just do that one. I just stick to the convex because I'm trying to keep it like concept art, sketchy in every sense of the word, in every part of this process. I'm not gonna go and refine anything. I'm just, that's the fastest one. Boom, click, done. Necessary to say. To add some of the Megascans trees, you can just go to the Epic Games Marketplace, search for Megascans trees, click Add to Project, and here you won't see the Unreal 5 project, but what you can do is click Show All Projects, click on your project, switch the version to an older one, and then Add to Project. And it's gonna work. Okay, so once that's loaded in, you can go into Content Drawer, go over to your main content folder, Black Alder, Geometry. The Pivot Painter one is more advanced. Simple Wind is just simple. I will just drag that one out over here. So you see you get this nice wind. It really looks great. Now to change some of these settings, what you need to do is go back into Content Drawer, back up to the main directory, go to Megascans Presets, and then the Megascans Foliage Material, Global Foliage Actor, BP Global Foliage Actor, drag that out into the scene. And then when you click it, over here you'll have the settings again. So we can change the seasons, health, I'm not really big on like tutorials having, going through every setting. I personally don't like to learn like that. I just like to click around. So for this video, I really just want to show you where stuff is, explain kind of some of the basic logic, and then you guys can click through and learn all that stuff. But you have to place this actor out into the scene first, so that is important to know. Okay, so we're at a point where we have brought in all of our custom geometry. We've used megascans, we have trees, and so far we've been placing everything manually. So there's one thing that's really awesome, and it is the foliage mode here. So you go up here, select foliage, and now from your content drawer, you can choose the tree. Basically what you do is you click this plus button, and then you can just search for one of your trees. Let's see, I guess you need the name, or you can probably just drag it in. Yeah, so you can just drag it in, choose the location, sure. So now it turns it into like a foliage type. And now you have this, and basically where you click, you can just draw on the surface. Just really simple, scatter on surface. So again, the process is drag from here into this menu. And then down here you have all your settings. Obviously you want to have different scale. Let's lower the density. It's like 3. Okay. So you can just paint away. And then these are already populated in here, but what I did was went into megascans and I got some plants. So like this swamp grass. And it just automatically added it for those types of assets. So you just go in here, you can check it, and the more that you check, it'll just kind of sample randomly between them. So instead of 1, let's use these 3. Then we've got our settings, and then as we paint, wait a second for it to load. So there we are. That just does not look good. Let's just try a little bit different. Let's maybe some larger grass. Okay, let's do more density. Definitely lower the scale. See how that looks. Still not right. So you can change the density individually, but what I want to do is affect the density for all of them. Same with the scale. I'll do 0.3 to 1. Okay, so now when I draw, yeah, now you're getting something that is a little bit more grassy. Still a bit too uniform, but that's just a matter of messing with the materials, messing with how many assets you're using, random rotation, and all that. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, actually, so what else do you need? When you're in foliage, keep in mind what setting you're using. So paint is for painting, and then sometimes you need to erase. You need to select them, and then you can edit them individually, which is really crazy. It's good for if you get one that just isn't in the right spot, you can always delete it. So let's just select all of these. Lasso, select all of them. Delete them. Try again. Deselect everything. Okay. So that's just kind of all the basic settings that you need. Everything's very clear from there. Just takes time. I'm gonna pause the video and just spend some time trying to get this right.
Okay, so one way that we're gonna kind of take this to the finish is we're gonna play with the character, go to a spot in the map, and then maybe take a screenshot and paint over it. But obviously that's very limiting with the camera angle. Not only the camera angle, but also just the type of lens. And you know, if you're doing a full-on concept, you might want more control over that. So if you're not just doing a playable concept, what you can do is a couple things. First, and this is more helpful just to kind of lay the scene out. There's this over here, you go to bookmarks, set bookmark, you use these control plus number hotkeys just to save the temporary camera that you have. So for example, say we want to save this. Just press Control 1. Now, while I'm over here maybe editing some things, if I need to go back, I just press 1. So you take away the control when you're doing the jump to the bookmark. And now I'm back in that view. So that's really useful. I'm going to clear that. I think the bookmark is a little bit more useful just for, like, if you're moving stuff around and then you want to go back and forth and see how it looks. But obviously we do need a real camera if we want to do a full-on concept. So you can go down here, cinematic, add a cine camera actor. It's going to drop this camera in the scene. You can see when it's selected, you can see what it sees. It has a bunch of settings here, really cool stuff, like you can do this kind of film, change the lens, and then once you select it, you can right click and do pilot, and now you are driving around with the camera view. So maybe you'll do something like this. And try and get the composition right. But also, so if you want to eject from that camera and not pilot anymore, you just press at the top left there's a button. It looks like a CD disk ejection thing. Select the camera. Let's change this back to 16:9. Maybe do a 50mm. Go back, pilot it again. Move around. Yeah, pretty cool. Something like that. Okay. And then over here, eject. So there's our camera. And again, I do think the bookmarks are useful just if you are still laying the scene out. But ultimately probably use a camera, or just kind of during the playable mode, you can take a screenshot at any time. Alright, so now let's get into the sky, the lighting, the fog, just kind of take this to the next level after I finish up with the layout here. So this is what I ended up with once I added a few more assets, tweaked the fog, tweaked the lighting, add a few more UFOs here. Just gonna fly around and show you guys. Place some huts. It's pretty cool to just kind of move around in here. Got my characters, my QuickTools cow here that came in nicely with the photo modeling. Marks, so I have 1, 2, 3, and then I have a few cameras. Pilot. So this is one angle. This is another angle that I had in mind. Let's just fly around here a little bit. So yeah, it's pretty nice. It's weird to have, it's like kind of a game, kind of a movie set. I know I'm gonna paint over it, so I'm not necessarily, you know, like refining, like this looks really bad. But for the purposes of making concept art, that's great. And at the same time, you can play in it. I have my my start character is not in a good position. I'll actually will be good to show you guys that. So if you look for player start over here, let's just type it in. Player start. Press F, so he's inside. So just make sure that that is not in an object. I don't know what this bad size error has to do with anything. It doesn't seem to matter. But it can't be inside a mesh. So now I press play, and I've got myself the character. And this is the default character, so that's what we're going to be working on next. The final step here is to bring in our playable character from Blender. And for the lighting, so all I did, since we used the blueprint, it has everything here already. So, you know, I'm just going through directional light. These are all basically the settings that you should be used to from Cycles and Eevee and V-Ray, Octane, whatever you used. The fog, very simple. Just, I mean, a lot of settings, but it all kind of works in the same PBR way that we're used to. Post-process volume is very important. So, I mean, it would take so long to go through all of these settings, and there's videos on YouTube already about it. I really just wanted to point out the basic stuff. And I just kind of go through every setting here. Only thing I want to say to keep in mind is this show only modified properties. Very useful, because sometimes you just want to, like, you just don't like the lighting and you want to reset, but you don't necessarily want to go back to an old save. You just click this little button and reset all those. I found myself using that a couple times when I didn't like what I was getting. So yeah, alright, now let's get our playable character in and we can wrap this up. Alright, we're on to our final step of the process, getting our custom hero character in and making it playable. This is a pretty complicated process. We're just going to go step by step. I'm going to explain everything and we're going to get it done. So first, let's go into characters and create a new folder here. Call it hero. Inside hero, we're going to import our playable character. So you just want to make sure that skeletal mesh is turned on, and then skeleton here is set to none. So if you have something here by default for some reason, make sure you clear it, and you're good to go. And this is, so let's press import, and then this is not using Mixamo. This is just using the rig and taking over the animations that come with Unreal. Ignore all of those errors, it's fine. So hero, let's, I have to change the material because of that UV thing. Set this to 2, save it. Hero. Okay, so this is the character. Now we are gonna right click here and we're gonna go to animation, IK rig. This is gonna be our source. So our source is gonna be either the SKM Manny or the SKM Quinn, just depending on if you have a male or female character. You can use the simple if you want. I'm gonna use the Quinn simple. And then I'm going to call it source. Name source. Okay. Then you're going to do it again. Animation, right click, animation, IK rig. You're going to choose the Hero V01 skeletal mesh. You're going to rename it target. Now we're going to go into source. You should see the mannequin that you chose. You're going to go over here to pelvis. Right click, set retarget root. Then you're going to go to add new chain and you're going to click it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we are going to name this right here. We're going to go head, spine, left arm, right arm, left leg, right leg. I'm going to choose neck, head. So it's neck 01 and head. Spine 01 and spine 03. Left arm is going to be clavicle L, and it's going to go over to the hand L. Clavicle R goes to hand R. Left leg is going to be thigh over to ball. Thigh R to ball R. Okay, so we're set here. We're going to save, close it. Now we're going to go into target. It's going to be our hero mesh. We are once again going to go to pelvis, set retarget root. And this is why I had mentioned earlier with the rig naming, it's not necessary, absolutely, that everything's named like this, but it obviously makes this so much easier if it's all named the same way. So head, spine, left arm, right arm, left leg, right leg. Once again, we're going to go from neck 01 to the head. We're going to go from spine 01 to spine 03. We're going to go from clavicle left to hand left, clavicle right, hand right, thigh to ball, which is just the ankle bone, and thigh R. Okay, so now we're going to save that. So now we go into the hero folder again. We have source target. We're going to right click again. We're going to go to animation, IK retargeter. Now this is going to be the source. Then we could just call it retarget. Double click. You're going to see the mannequin here. And then over here you see the target. So the target is going to be our target. And your character should pop up right here. If something doesn't, then just rewind and try it again. So now you go into the chain mapping and you should see that everything's kind of lined up. So it tries to match it just based off the name. So if you have different names, you'll have to mess around with this. But at this point, everything should be good. We can go over here down. You want to scroll down to the underscore. Those are the ones that really matter. So we're gonna just click on idle, double click, and you see our character just warped into that position. So everything is roughly working. Let's try fall loop. Let's just go through all these. Land, run. Run does not look great because of my setup, but it is working. Walk. Okay, so let's go over here and pause this. Now up here you see an edit pose. Let's click that. And basically what we want to do is match this to this a little bit more. So all you just do is just click on some of these bones and you can just animate them a little, rotate them a little bit. So I just eyeball this. Again, I'm making concept art, not a game, so I don't mind if the animation's a little messed up. I'm gonna move this a little bit. Can I move it? Yeah, so I guess let's do that. No, that doesn't make sense. The legs are a little bit too close, but there's nothing really that I can do about it without going back into Blender, which is just not worth it. I'm just gonna move it out a little bit like that and call it a day. Okay, so that kind of looks better. Now we can turn off edit pose and check. Okay, the hands are looking much better. They're not intersecting anymore. Check out run. I'm okay with that. Totally fine with that. Fall looks good. Idle looks good. Jump looks good. Walk forward. Oh yeah, all right. I'm good with this. So now let's move on to the next step. We are gonna, let's pause this. We are gonna go over here to export. Now we're just gonna choose a few because we have to set up our own blueprint, and it's gonna basically blend between these certain animations based on our input. So we don't need all of them. We need idle. We'll get run forward. We'll get walk forward. We'll get start with because those are the ones that matter. So we want walk, run, land, jump, and idle, and fall. So we don't need walk in place. I think that's pointless. And just with these, we are gonna export. We're gonna go into our hero folder, which is, where is it? Characters, hero. Okay, so characters, hero. We're gonna select that. We're exporting the underscore fall, idle, jump, land, run, and walk. And now just triple check. We're gonna click on one of these, and we've got it. So again, middle mouse to click that window, close it. We're gonna save this. We are gonna close this. Okay, so now let's set up the animation blueprint that's gonna let us control this character. We're gonna right click, animation blueprint. We're gonna choose the hero skeleton, create. I'm just gonna keep the default name because I don't like to name things. Double click. We've got our character. We are going to create a state machine. State machine, add new state machine. Okay. And then we're gonna connect this to result. Double click to enter the state machine. We're gonna right click, add a state. And this is gonna be our walk, run, jump. Actually, no, it's not gonna be jump. Let me go back up here, rename it. It's gonna be idle, walk, run. Okay, this goes in here. Now we're gonna, when you click on the edge here, it lets you drag out an arrow. So we're gonna drag it out, add a new state. That one's gonna be called jump. And then from the jump border here, we're gonna drag out, go back into the idle, walk, run. So now, all right, so now we're gonna set up the jump logic. So you wanna double click into jump, and then you wanna drag out the jump here from the asset browser, connect it in, go back out, and now we need to figure out the thing that makes it transition to that. So we're gonna double click that little arrow thing. And now in order to set the variable up, we're gonna go to the event graph. we're gonna go to try get pawn owner, drag out, and do a movement component, get movement component. Now drag out from here, is falling. And then we're gonna promote this. We're gonna right click on the return value, promote to variable. It's a Boolean. We're gonna name it is jumping. And then it's gonna go in here. Let me see my notes. What's next? Now from here, we need to get the movement speed. So we can do that by velocity, get velocity. And this is a vector, so we need to convert it to a float. So we can do length. And now this is going to be promoted to speed. And this is going to be a float. Yep, speed. And this, I believe, like this. So this goes in here. We'll just be jumping is at speed. Yep. Okay. So now we can save and compile this, and we see it going here. Now for the transition, we're back in here. We want to bring in our variable. So is jumping. Get is jumping. Are you jumping? Yes. Great. Then that means you are going to, go from here. You're going to go into jumping. Now we need to do the other side. Jump in here, is jumping, get is jumping, and then we need a logic gate, which is not. Let's find out where that is. Not Boolean, that one. Plug that in. Let me go double check everything. Okay, so that is good. I did have an is falling variable here that's just from an old test that I was doing. So the only ones you should have, if you follow this, was is jumping is speed. And let's just take a look again. In jump, you have the jump. In the left side, you have just is jumping, yes. And then on the right side, you have is jumping, not, then it does that. So now we saved and compiled. We can close this out, go over here, and we want to create a new blend space. Animation, blend space 1D. And we are once again going to choose our hero skeleton, call it the same thing, go inside here. All right, so now in the blend space, if you don't have this asset details tab, you can just go to window, make sure it's on here. So in here, this is going to be the maximum speed that we have to work with. This is not the actual running speed for the character. That's in a different area. That's next. This is the maximum speed where the animation changes. And you can this is like the timeline for, so this is 0, we're going to have an animation here, and then at 500, we're going to have another animation. Now what we want to do first is just change this speed, wait speed to 10. And I believe that's it. Okay, now we're going to put idle at 0. We're going to put walk over here. And we're going to put run over here. Now if you hold control over, you can see what happens. And then you get the nice little blending in between. So I'm just going to pause that. And we are actually done with that. So we're going to save it, close it, go over here. And we are going to go back to our animation blueprint. And now we can change this idle walk run. So we're going to double click inside here. We're going to drag out our blend space in here. Connect that up. And then we have our speed that we made earlier. We're going to drag that in, get speed, goes in, there you go. Save, compile, close. So we're almost there. One thing I actually forgot to do, if you go back into the animation blueprint, go back out here to the state machine, go into jump. This animation here, you want to make sure that loop is off, loop animation, because it's not a looping animation unlike the other ones. So turn that off, save, compile, close, close. Okay, now we're going to go into our content browser, go to the third person, go to the blueprints, click on this BP third person character, look at the viewport. So this is like the character that the game is using. So what we're going to do is click on it. We're going to go over here to the skeletal mesh, change it to our hero, and that you'll see that it doesn't have the right pose, doesn't have the animations. We're going to go up to anim class and select the new class that we made, the blueprint, new anim blueprint, and boom. So we're going to save, compile, close, and now it's time for the moment of truth. We're going to click. We've got our character. Now I'm going to show you the running speed, because this character in particular just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be running so fast, and actually it's shorter than the other mesh, so we're going to have to tweak that. So let's just go back in. We've got the basics working. Now let's go fine-tune this and get it perfect. We're going to go back in here, back to the viewport. So now if you're having some issues with the collision, maybe you need to just move this down a little bit. Or maybe just go back into the Megascans assets and tweak the collision settings a little bit and increase the resolution. The last thing that we want to do on character movement, go to max speed, max walk speed over here. I set that to 400 so that she never really goes into like full running mode. And then the jump velocity, I lowered that a little bit so it's more realistic. You can also change the camera here, which is kind of cool, but I haven't messed with that too much yet. So I've got that. Save, compile, close. There's a player start over here. So if you were getting that error that I had earlier where it says bad size, you just have to move it up. It's not a big deal, but that's how you fix that. And now let's click the play button. Let's see if we're on the ground. It should move it down just a little bit more. Let's go to content drawer, blueprint, viewport, character, move her down like that much. Save, compile, close, play. Alright, got a character, jumps, walks, runs, can look around. We've got a playable concept. It's very, very cool. This character flying here. Check it out from this angle. All right.